Don't skip this, my child. Not because I need your attention, but because you need my voice. There are moments when the world is loud, when distractions feel harmless, when scrolling past one more message seems easier than stopping to listen. But this moment was not sent by accident. I am speaking because time matters and your heart matters. I have watched you grow tired, watched you try to be strong on your own, watched you normalize pain I never intended you to carry. And still, I call you my child, because even when you walk away, you do not stop belonging to me. You have told yourself, you will listen later, pray later, change later, obey later. But later quietly becomes never. Every time you delay listening, your heart grows a little harder, not because you are evil, but because you are overwhelmed. I see that. I see how disappointment taught you to guard yourself. I see how unanswered prayers made you doubt whether I was still near. But silence does not mean absence, and delay does not mean denial. I have been working in places you could not see, shaping outcomes you have not yet reached. Don't skip this, my child, because the urgency in my voice is not meant to frighten you, it is meant to protect you. When I speak urgently, it is not because I am impatient, but because I see what you cannot see yet. I see the road ahead, the turns that look harmless, the decisions that feel small but carry heavy consequences. You hear urgency and think danger, punishment, or pressure, but I speak urgently because love does not whisper when a heart is at risk. Love raises its voice when silence could cost too much. You live in a world that trains you to delay, to put things off, to assume there will always be another chance. Another day to listen, another moment to pray, another season to change. But urgency exists because not everything waits. Some doors close quietly, some opportunities pass without warning, and some damage happens slowly enough that you do not notice until it has already taken root. I speak now because I want to spare you from pain you were never meant to experience. You mistake my warning for control, but it is actually care. I am not trying to limit your freedom. I am trying to keep you from chains you do not yet recognize. When I say listen now, it is because your heart is still soft enough to respond. When I say don't skip this, it is because distraction has become the enemy of your discernment. What you ignore today may shape your tomorrow, not because I punish you for ignoring me, but because life keeps moving whether you listen or not. I know you are tired. I know urgency feels overwhelming when you already feel stretched thin. You think, just let me rest, just let me breathe, just let me get through this moment. But my voice is not coming to add weight, it is coming to lift it. You have been carrying things you were never asked to carry. You have been blaming yourself for outcomes that required my guidance, not your willpower. If I speak urgently, it is because relief is closer than you think, but only if you stop long enough to receive it. Do not confuse urgency with anger. Anger pushes you away, love pulls you closer. I am not shouting at you, I am reaching for you. I am calling you out of patterns that will drain you, out of relationships that will confuse you, out of choices that will slowly dim the light inside you. You think you are strong enough to handle it, and maybe you are, but strength was never meant to replace obedience. You can survive without listening, but surviving is not the life I promised you. Every urgent message carries an invitation to pause, to reflect, to realign. I am asking you to notice what you have been ignoring. The unease you feel is not anxiety without reason. It is awareness trying to wake you up. The discomfort is not weakness, it is conscience knocking. I speak now because clarity is available, but clarity requires attention. You cannot hear direction while running at full speed in the wrong lane. You are not failing because I speak urgently. You are loved so deeply that I refuse to stay silent. If I truly did not care, I would let you drift, let you numb yourself, let you learn everything the hard way. But I interrupt because interruption can save a life, a future, a calling. My urgency is proof that your story still matters, your choices still matter, and your heart is still worth protecting. When you ignore my voice, it does not happen all at once. It happens slowly, quietly, almost gently. At first, it feels harmless. You miss a moment of prayer, you delay obedience, you silence a conviction because it is inconvenient. Nothing dramatic happens, so you tell yourself it must be fine. But each time you ignore me, your heart learns how to turn down the volume. Not because I stopped speaking, but because you stopped listening. What once stirred your spirit now barely moves you. and what once felt wrong slowly begins to feel normal. Spiritual numbness is not rebellion. It is distance that grows unnoticed. You did not wake up one day deciding to walk away. You simply got tired, distracted, wounded, or busy. Life demanded so much from you that you chose survival over sensitivity. I understand that. But numbness is dangerous because it disguises itself as peace. You think you are calm, but in reality, you have become disconnected. You think you are strong, but you have simply stopped feeling. And when you stop feeling, you stop discerning. Purpose cannot be fulfilled by a numb heart. I created you with intention, with direction, with a calling tied to your sensitivity to my voice. When you tune me out, you don't lose me, but you lose clarity. You start moving without direction, choosing based on comfort instead of calling. You work harder but feel emptier. You achieve more but feel less fulfilled. That emptiness is not failure. It is your soul reminding you that it was designed to be guided. You begin to confuse motion with progress. Just because you are busy does not mean you are becoming who you were meant to be. When my voice is ignored, purpose does not disappear. It waits. It waits patiently while you take detours that exhaust you. It waits while you pour yourself into things that look successful but leave you spiritually dry. And every time you wonder why joy feels shallow, why peace doesn't last, why something feels missing even when life looks full, it is because purpose was never meant to be reached without listening. Ignoring me also makes you vulnerable. When you no longer recognize my voice, you start accepting others. You listen to fear, to pressure, to comparison, to noise that tells you who to be and how fast to become it. Without my guidance, you chase approval instead of alignment. You compromise slowly, not out of evil, but out of confusion. Numbness blurs truth until you no longer recognize when you are drifting. I never stop calling you, even when you stop responding. But the longer you ignore me, the harder it becomes for you to recognize the gentle pull back to me. It feels unfamiliar, uncomfortable, even unnecessary. That is the cost of numbness. Not that I leave, but that returning feels harder than staying distant. And still, I remain patient, because I know the moment you choose to listen again, feeling will return, clarity will return, and purpose will begin to rise from where it was waiting. You are not too far gone. You are not disqualified. Numbness is not the end. It is a signal. A signal that your soul is craving reconnection, not punishment. The moment you stop ignoring my voice, even slightly, sensitivity begins to come back. Purpose awakens when listening resumes. What was missed can still be redeemed, because I am not limited by the time you lost, only by the distance you choose to keep. Even when you are distant, even when you feel unworthy, distracted, or tired of trying, I still call you my child. Distance has never canceled identity. You may feel far from me, but I have never moved away from you. I know the moments you stopped praying because words felt heavy. I know the times you avoided silence because you were afraid of what you might hear. I know how guilt convinced you to stay away instead of drawing near. But none of that changed how I see you. You think distance disqualifies you, that you must fix yourself before you can return, that you must feel strong faith before you can listen again. I call you precisely because you are distant. A shepherd does not call the sheep that are already close. He raises his voice for the ones that wandered. Your weakness does not repel me. Your honesty does not offend me. What separates us is not your failure, but your silence. I have watched you struggle quietly. You learned how to smile while feeling empty, how to keep going while feeling disconnected. You told yourself this is just how life is now, that closeness fades, that passion cools, that faith becomes routine. But that numb acceptance is not your destiny. I call you not to shame you, but to awaken you. I am reminding you of who you are, not scolding you for where you've been. Even when you chose other voices over mine, I stayed. Even when you trusted your understanding more than my guidance, I stayed. Even when you replaced dependence with self-reliance, I stayed. You thought I was quiet because I was disappointed, but I was quiet because you needed to notice the absence. Sometimes distance teaches what constant closeness cannot. It reveals hunger. It reveals need. It reveals the truth that you were never meant to walk alone. You may feel like coming back is awkward now, like too much time has passed, like you wouldn't even know how to start again. But return does not require perfect words or perfect faith. It only requires a willing heart. I am not asking you to explain everything. I am not demanding answers. I am simply calling your name, reminding you that connection is still possible, still open, still welcomed. When I call you my child, it is not symbolic, it is personal. Children don't lose their place because they get lost, tired, or stubborn. They are still claimed, still loved, still waited for. Your distance has not exhausted my patience or reduced my desire to guide you. The same voice that spoke to you before is speaking again, not louder, not harsher, but clearer if you are willing to pause. Stop measuring yourself by how far you think you've drifted. Measure me by how faithfully I have followed you with grace. Every moment you felt alone, I was near. Every step you took away, I kept the path back visible. I am calling you not to remind you of your failure, but to invite you into restoration. You are not being summoned for punishment, but for healing, direction, and peace. Listen now, not as someone who has failed, but as someone who is loved enough to be called again. Distance ends the moment listening begins, and I have been waiting with the same patience, the same love, and the same open arms as the first day you ever heard my voice. Delayed obedience does not feel dangerous at first because it disguises itself as wisdom, caution, or waiting for the right moment. You tell yourself you are being thoughtful, that you just need more clarity, more strength, more assurance. But deep inside, you already know what I asked of you. Obedience was never unclear, it was uncomfortable. And so you paused, not because you did not hear me, but because you hoped time would change what I had spoken. Every delay carries a cost, not because I am strict, but because obedience is the doorway through which healing, peace, and breakthrough flow. When you delay obedience, you are not postponing rules, you are postponing relief. You are choosing to stay longer in what hurts because leaving it requires trust. You pray for healing while holding on to what keeps reopening the wound. You ask for peace while refusing to release what fuels the storm inside you. You long for breakthrough while standing still at the very step that would unlock it. I see how delay exhausts you. You keep revisiting the same pain, the same cycles, the same questions, wondering why nothing changes. It is not because I am withholding help, but because obedience is how help arrives. You were not meant to think your way into freedom, you were meant to walk into it. Every time you hesitate, your heart learns fear instead of faith, and fear slowly convinces you that staying where you are is safer than trusting where I am leading you. Delayed obedience also trains your spirit to negotiate instead of surrender. You begin to ask how close you can get without fully committing, how much you can obey without giving everything. That inner tension steals peace long before circumstances ever do. Peace does not come from control, it comes from alignment. Healing does not come from understanding every detail, it comes from trusting the direction. Breakthrough does not respond to excuses, it responds to movement. You wonder why your prayers feel heavy, why joy feels distant, why hope feels fragile. It is because your soul knows it is living between two places, where you are and where you were called to be. That in-between space is exhausting. It drains energy, faith, and clarity. Obedience ends that tension. The moment you step forward, the weight begins to lift, not because everything changes instantly, but because you are finally moving with me instead of resisting me. I am not asking for rushed obedience, but for honest obedience. Waiting on me is different from avoiding me. Waiting brings peace. Avoidance breeds anxiety. When you delay what you already know to do, you keep yourself in a loop of overthinking and self-doubt. You replay my words, reinterpret them, water them down, hoping they will feel easier tomorrow. But what requires obedience today will not require less obedience later. I do not shame you for delaying. I understand fear. I understand attachment. I understand how hard it is to let go of what feels familiar, even when it hurts. But I need you to understand this. Every delay keeps you from the very thing you are asking me for. Healing is waiting on the other side of surrender. Peace is waiting on the other side of trust. Breakthrough is waiting on the other side of obedience. The step you keep postponing is not meant to harm you, it is meant to free you. I am not trying to take something from you. I'm trying to give something to you. Stop measuring obedience by what you might lose and start seeing it for what it opens. The moment you choose to obey, even trembling, even unsure, you will find that I was already there, prepared to meet you with everything you have been praying for. You hear my warning and assume anger, but that is because you have learned to associate correction with rejection. Human voice is often worn when patience is gone, when love is thin, when frustration has reached its limit. But my warning does not come from irritation, it comes from care. I warn because I am close, not because I am distant. I speak firmly because silence would mean indifference, and I have never been indifferent toward you. If I were angry, I would let you continue without interruption. I would allow you to learn everything the hardest way, to collide with consequences without guidance, to discover truth only after damage is done. Love does not do that. Love steps in. Love disrupts. Love raises its voice when the heart it loves is moving toward harm. My warning is not proof that you are failing. It is proof that you are worth protecting. You mistake the weight in my words for condemnation, but it is urgency shaped by compassion. I know how fragile you are right now, even when you pretend to be strong. I know the thoughts you do not share, the battles you fight in silence, the temptations you justify because you are tired. My warning comes because I see how close you are to giving up on things that still matter, including yourself. Anger pushes people away. Love leans in closer. I do not warn you because I enjoy control, but because I see danger disguised as comfort. Some things feel safe because they are familiar, not because they are good for you. Some paths feel easy because they ask nothing of you, not because they lead anywhere meaningful. My warning is my way of saying you deserve better than survival, better than numbing, better than slowly losing who you were created to be. When I warn you, I am not counting your mistakes. I am guarding your future. I see what unchecked habits will cost you. I see how certain compromises will shape you in ways you never intended. I see how bitterness can quietly grow, how fear can harden, how distraction can steal years without announcing itself. Love does not wait until everything falls apart. Love intervenes while there is still time to turn. You assume anger because warnings make you uncomfortable. They force you to stop, to reflect, to face things you would rather avoid. But discomfort is not cruelty. Surgery hurts, but it heals. Training strains, but it strengthens. My warning is meant to realign you, not punish you. I am not trying to make you feel small. I am trying to keep you from shrinking. I know there are moments when my words feel heavy, when conviction feels like pressure. But pressure does not always come from threat. Sometimes it comes from being held in place so you do not slip further. I would rather hold you tightly now than have to pick you up broken later. That is not anger. That is commitment. Every warning carries hope inside it. If I warn you, it means change is still possible. It means you are not stuck. It means the story is not finished. I would not call your attention if there were nothing left to save, nothing left to shape, nothing left to restore. My warning means your choices still matter, your direction still matters, your heart still matters. Do not pull away when you hear my warning. Lean in and listen to the love behind it. Hear the care, not the correction. Feel the protection, not the pressure. I am not against you. I am not disappointed in you. I am standing in front of you, pointing away from harm and toward life, because loving you means refusing to stay silent. Listening today feels small to you, almost insignificant compared to the weight of everything else you are carrying. You tell yourself one moment, one choice, one act of obedience cannot possibly change much, but that is because you are looking at life from the middle of the story, not from the beginning or the end. I see how a single decision becomes a turning point. I see how attention redirects a path long before the destination changes. Listening today is not about the moment itself. It is about the direction it sets. Many of the changes you are praying for do not arrive suddenly. They begin quietly. They begin the moment you stop scrolling past conviction, the moment you pause long enough to consider my voice, the moment you choose alignment over impulse. Tomorrow is shaped by what you give your attention to today. When you listen now, you step into a flow that carries you forward instead of wearing you down. You think transformation requires strength, but it actually requires surrender. Strength without direction exhausts you. Effort without alignment drains you. But listening tunes your steps to a rhythm that brings peace even when circumstances are still hard. When you listen today, you are not fixing everything, but you are choosing the road where healing, wisdom, and growth are possible. That choice matters more than you realize. Ignoring today does not always look dramatic, but it quietly repeats yesterday. The same thought patterns, the same reactions, the same disappointments cycle again because nothing redirected them. Listening interrupts that cycle. It introduces a new possibility into a familiar routine. That is why it feels uncomfortable. New direction always does. But discomfort is often the first sign that something different is beginning. I know you worry about the future, about whether you will regret decisions, about whether you will miss what truly matters. That is why listening today is such a gift. You do not have to predict tomorrow if you stay attentive today. Direction is not something you calculate, it is something you receive. Each moment of listening builds clarity, and clarity builds confidence. Over time, small acts of attention become a life of purpose. What you call a small step, I call a foundation. One decision to listen reshapes how you respond next time. One moment of obedience weakens habits that once felt permanent. One pause to hear my voice slows down the chaos that was ruling you. Your future self will not look back and remember every struggle, but it will remember the moment things started to change. Listening today also restores trust, not just your trust in me, but your trust in yourself. When you listen and act, even in small ways, you begin to believe again that you are capable of change, growth, and faithfulness. That confidence does not come from success, it comes from alignment. You feel whole when your actions reflect the truth you hear inside. Do not underestimate this moment. You are closer to redirection than you think. You are closer to peace than you realize. You are closer to becoming who you were meant to be than your doubts suggest. Listening today is not about perfection, it is about willingness. And willingness is powerful because it invites guidance into places where confusion once ruled. Everything you are hoping for tomorrow begins with attention today. Every new season starts with a single yes. The moment you choose to listen, you are no longer stuck, no longer drifting, no longer waiting blindly. You are moving, even if it feels slow, toward a future shaped by purpose instead of regret.